We're talking about No Signal Being Detected, this series. It's been great. No, I'm just kidding. We're actually talking about road trips and having joy in your journey throughout life. All of us are going through a journey of life, and there's different things with life. There's choices you make, choices I make, and we've kind of explored the last several weeks. Basically, like, there are times where joy seems impossible, but there's things we can do to find joy in any and every situation. And joy is one of those universal emotions. Like, everyone can feel it. Everyone wants to feel it. That's why we're even talking about having joy through our journey. Is it like you want to have joy? Emotions actually are universal. There's been a lot of study actually see kind of what emotions everybody feels across the board, and even different really smart people, like one guy named Dr. Daniel Cardero. He went to remote villages in different countries, and he was looking and trying to see, he was trying to see what emotions are universal, like where it doesn't matter the background. And these are like totally untouched people groups, like villages where like they have no electronic technology. Like, this is like you fly in a plane, you hike in the trail, you take a bus, you take a boat, you hitchhike, you hike there, and then you camp there, and then hopefully you meet the people, right? So what he did is he went and he would pull out different pictures of people's facial expressions and then ask these villagers kind of what emotion this is. Now, I don't have a PhD, so I don't have really fancy pictures, but what we do have is we have emojis. Like this one here, if you see, I want y'all to think, what emotion is this? Happy, right? Everyone knows that one. Everyone's like, yeah, happy, like that's great. Or how about this one? Let's see if I'll get this one right. What's this one? Silly, you're goofy, you're playful. It's so funny, I'm so crazy, my eyes closed, my tongue's out, right? Next one is sad, right? Bummer, sorry, you're sad about something, right? This one here, this one's funny. What's this one? Angry, right? You never send this to the person you're angry at, though. You realize, like, if you make me mad, I'm not sending you back, I'm sending you K. Or a thumbs up. Like, that's how you'll know. I'm never saying, but I'll send that to somebody else and be like, you won't believe what she did. Oh, she made me so angry. This next one is, I call this hopeful. If you get it, if you know what I know, right? My 10-year-old's like, what does that mean? I was like, don't worry about it. It's a grown-up thing, right? It's hopeful. And then this last one, what's this last one? I heard a lot of different things. Here's right. So Dr. Cardero would go in and he would do something similar, not with emojis, but he would go with people's facial expressions and he would show them all the different facial expressions. And these these villagers, these tribes people, they would get all these, and then he'd get to one like this. And some of you got it, some of you have no idea what it is. And he'd get to that, and they were kind of puzzled. And they were like trying to find words to try to explain, because he's like learning their language brand new, like these totally untouched, unreached people. So he would talk through it and try to figure it out and try to understand what it was. And then later, they go back to the camp and they're kind of debriefing. And their guide that brought them to the village said, hey, about that last emotion you showed them that we didn't really have a word for. There's a reaction, we didn't really have a word. This is what his guide said. He said, in our culture, this emotion is very special. It's the highest achievement of human well-being, and it's what the greatest enlightened masters have been writing about for thousands of years. Now, I'd say for you and I, we should think about, ponder, figure out, like, what is this emotion that is, it's the pinnacle of, it's the highest achievement of human well-being, because we all want to have a better well-being. Like, we want our lives to be better. You want your life to be better for you, for the people in your house, for some of your neighbors, probably not all your neighbors, like some of your coworkers. Like, I want your life to be better. We want to achieve whatever you want to call it, like next level. We want to be the best well-being possible. And also, this is what people have been writing about for thousands of years. Because you and I, like, we're not just wanting joy in our journey. We're on a journey to find joy. Like, we're trying to figure it out. You're trying to do all sorts of things. And generally what they found throughout their research is there's two primary ways that people try to go after getting joy, getting a better well-being in life. The first is they call it the more strategy, where if you just get more, then you'll be happy. Like, if you just acquire, and generally here's what happens. It goes from new to bigger to unique. New to big, and you probably even see this in your life. Like, you had a car and it was great. It was your first car and you loved it and like you named it and all the things. And then pretty soon you're like, yeah, it was kind of old. And I kind of need a different car. So you get a newer car, right? Or then you start having kids, or maybe it's not even that you have kids. You're just like, well, I just want a bigger car. right? My truck needs to be higher off the ground. Like I need to, like something, like I want new and that's bigger. And then it shifts. Even once you get that, then it goes to more unique. Where you go, well, now I don't just want a new or bigger. I want the classic car that like not many people have. Or I want the bag, they only made so many of this bag that like I am one of a select group of people that got this thing, and it goes to unique, right? And the reality is your appetite for more is never satisfied. So you will constantly be going back for more and for more and for more. And here's the thing, even just practically, very few of us can actually afford to satisfy the joy journey with the more strategy. Like maybe some of us in the room, most of us, I can't afford to just acquire more and hopefully I get happy. Like I don't have the financial resources to do that. It's probably similar for you. That's why more is not a good strategy. And then there's the other strategy that you can go where you can again get this ultimate pinnacle of human well-being is what they call is the enough strategy. Where what you have, you decide is enough. Now, before we talk about the enough strategy, I just want to highlight things. I think it's intellectually honest to say this. Is like, for most of us in the room, if you got a 15 to 20% increase in your income, it would help your life. Like, there are things in life that would be easier for you, right? You could pay someone to do something you don't really want to do. You could order more, whatever. You could, like there are things in your life. If you got 15 to 20% more income tomorrow, you'd figure, and it would make your life better. But there's a difference between saying, 15 to 20% of my income would make my life more, would be helpful, and saying 15 to 20%, I have to have that in order to be happy. So like more can help you, but at the end of the day, it's not gonna be something that makes you happy and gives you that joy. It's not the thing that the masters have been writing about for thousands of years. That's the enough strategy. You say, what I have is enough. I determine in my own life and what we have, like the car, it gets me around. The house, it provides for our needs. The job pays our bills. Like you determine. It's not that you never have any ambition or aspirations for life, but you come to a place, instead of saying joy is going to be gained by getting more, I say I can have joy right here in this moment. And the emotion, but the emoji showed, the emotion that we're talking about even today, is this emotion. It's contentment. It's you being content. Myself, I need to be content. And this is nothing new. This is something we have wrestled with for thousands of years. Even the quote from the God is that the enlightened masters have been writing about this for thousands of years. This is something generation after generation after generation. People are constantly thinking, if I just have more, I'll be happy. And then realizing that's a bad strategy. And Paul even talked about this. And we're looking through the book of Philippians. This is a letter that Paul wrote to believers in this city who didn't have a bunch. They were not going to acquire happiness through just getting more and more and more. They actually were outcast and persecuted and mistreated because their belief system in Jesus as the way to God and that Jesus was God was contrary to everything in the culture around them. So they were mistreated, and Paul is writing to them about having joy. But he hits on contentment as he's wrapping up his letter because it's that important. And this is what Paul says in chapter 4 of Philippians. He said, and this is a phrase we've kind of talked through a bunch through this series, is I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Now this phrase, I rejoiced greatly in the Lord, rejoice is the primary focus of this sentence. Like Paul's saying, I am actively doing something, I'm choosing to do something, but I'm not rejoicing in my situation, I'm not rejoicing in my stuff, I'm not rejoicing in all the stuff I have around me, I'm rejoicing in somebody, because as we've talked about throughout the series, joy is a who, not a what. So he's saying, I am rejoicing greatly in the Lord that you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. Like Paul had legitimate needs. Paul had a situation where he needed their help, and they wanted to help him. Now, it's easy for us sometimes, again, to think about rejoicing in the Lord as like, well, Paul, like, you're right in the Bible. Like, of course you're going to tell me to rejoice. Or like, even for me, like, Justin, you're a pastor. You're literally paid to tell me to look to Jesus. Like that's like the whole deal. But Paul is in a situation we had every reason to look at the situation around him and say, man, this is tough. Like Paul, yes, he's writing a letter to the Philippians, but he also is in the situation where he's in a Roman prison. If you remember, we've seen the picture of this several times. This is a similar type of prison where he looks like he's literally a hole in the ground, and it stinks, and there's disease all around him, and there's not a whole lot of hope that things are going to get better. This wasn't like, hey, you have due process, and we're going to follow you through. This is like, hey, dude, if you survive to trial, we can see. But Paul, even in this situation, which chances are you don't live in a situation like this. Even in this situation, Paul is saying, I'm not building my joy around the situation, the circumstance, the stuff that I have. I'm going to put my joy in a person because joy is a who, not a what. I'm going to look to someone, something greater than myself. And then he goes on, he says, I'm not saying this because I'm in need. Like he is rejoicing in God, not because he has a need, because I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. Like Paul's acknowledging, it took practice. Even this word here, learned, if you look back to the original language, it's talking about how it's experience over time. Like Paul had to learn to be content, just like you and I have to learn to be content. Sometimes we think about people who are content are almost just like lucky, right? Like they're happy with their job, they're happy in their marriage, like they just got lucky, right? And I'm just not a lucky person, so therefore I can't be content. Like we think about that in a lot of things. And contentment is one of those things. And I think if you were honest and you talk to the people who are content with their life, it's not because they got a bunch of stuff. It's not because they arrived. They just probably at some point said, I've just determined that I'm going to be thankful for what I have that's right in front of me. And it takes time. But here's the reality. Being content goes against all of our natural resources or natural senses. Because you can touch and smell and taste and feel, and you can look around. Again, your car is great until you see the new model come out. Your house is great until whoever on social media gets or whatever, and you're like, well, now they have a thing, and I don't have a thing in my house. I need to figure out how to get the thing in my, like your thing is great until your senses betray you and say, actually, your life would be better if you had that thing. Right? Even this last fall, Rachel and I went for our anniversary, and she found this little cute Italian spot, and we went out for dinner, and I love food, and I love Italian food. And the benefit of marrying a woman the size of Rachel is I get to eat about half her meals every time we go out, because she's about this big. So we order, and usually I'm a pretty basic person with food. I'll try different things, but I'm like, I know what I like, I'm gonna order that. For whatever that night, I was like, I'm gonna try something. I don't know if I'd like this or not. I ordered it. It was good, I just didn't love it. The problem was Rachel's meal was really good. And I'm looking at her meal, and she's like, do you want a bite? And I'm like, of course I want a bite. Like, that's why we've been married so long, because you always let me eat your food. I take a bite, and then immediately I'm like, well, do you want to trade? Like, don't you like the thing that we're trying to trade? And let me tell you, if you have not experienced, nothing will test your marital vows more than when your spouse gets a meal that's better than your meal, and you want half or all of it, and it doesn't work. But reality is, I had a meal. I had food right in front of me, but my senses show, and that is better. I like that more. And everything in us, our senses, our natural reactions is to not be content because we can see things. And we can experience things. And Paul is saying, you have to learn to be content because your senses can deceive you. There's also the reality that not every appetite should be satisfied. Just because I want something doesn't mean it's going to be good for me. But my senses will tell me you should have that. That's a good thing. You need to have that in order to find joy. And Paul is saying, hey, hold up. You don't have to have it. You can learn a better way. And then he goes on to explain how he learned a better way. He says, I know what it is to be in need and what it is to have plenty. Like I've been all over the place with my possessions, what I have. I've learned the secret to be content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, living in plenty or in want. See, Paul actually has the credentials. He has a street cred. He knows what it's like. He said, I've had plenty, and they would all be like, yeah, if you know Paul's story, he came from a religious elite group of people. He had influence and affluence, and he was set. Things were good. He had everything you would want in that context, and he gave it all up. So he's experienced that. It's not just well, I've never had a lot, but I think I know what it's like. He was there. He had a lot. Then he also didn't have a lot. He had literal scars on his body from times that he was mistreated, times that he was outcast. He knew what it was. So he has a tremendous amount of credibility. And he still says, in the midst of all this, I know a secret. And the secret is not my stuff or my situation. See, generally we see something like this too, and we're like, I've learned every situation to be content. And we think, well, it's just generally when you don't have a lot. That's when you really learn to be content. I don't know if anybody is for Rachel, when we first started out, we did not have anything. Where like every piece of furniture we had, we built ourselves, or we found on the side of the road, or we bought it secondhand, or like we didn't have a lot. And like in those situations, anyone ever been there like that? 6 of you? Perfect. Everybody else, y'all got money, so good for you. No, I'm just kidding. But here's where like someone's like, yeah, we've been, and it's really easy to be like, well, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. And when you don't have a lot, you should be content. But Paul is saying there's just as much danger in being discontent when you have a lot. Because when you have a lot, it's really easy to start to shift your view and say, well, I'm content because I have all this stuff. And I'm okay, I don't have any wants because like all my needs are taken care of. And Paul's saying it doesn't matter whether you have a lot or a little, you need to be content. But all of us, if we're honest, we're like, yeah, but I would like just to try to have a lot and see if it works. Like I might be like the only one that it works that way. So like, Jesus, could we try? I'll try it out. If it doesn't work, I'll give it all back. But even outside of Scripture, so many people have experienced that when you hit the pinnacle, you're on top of the world, you have everything you ever want. You go, it's not the point. Jim Carrey actually famously said this way. He said, I wish everyone could get rich and famous in everything they ever dreamed of so they could see it's not the answer. Now again, for you and I, but Jim, really? Like I would just like to try. And this is where Paul is saying, y'all, I have had everything and I have had nothing. But I have learned a secret. The logical conclusion, the logical understanding of a secret is that it's secret. Like you don't think about it right away. It's not in your senses. It's something that's hidden from you. So even for us, we need to look and say, Paul, what was the secret that you learned that we can learn through experience so we can be content and find joy in our journey no matter what situation we have, no matter the stuff around us? See, there's a lot of different answers on what the secret could be, and this is even all different faith backgrounds and different studies. We'll try to figure out what is this, how can you truly be content? Some ancient philosophers will talk about inner resources. That's if you have inner resources, if you kind of have a thing within yourself, that will help you be content. The Greek word for content here that Paul uses is unconditional wholeness. Like that is what he's talking about. Now, let me just ask, if you had this, imagine how much joy you would have in life. If you weren't dependent on the clothing you have, the car you drive, the where you live, the relationship you're with, like you weren't dependent on those things, you said, I am good. Here's the reality though, for me, and I think it's probably true for you, I can't get here on my own. I need something outside of myself to help me find this unconditional wholeness within myself. I think you're probably the same way. The problem is we just look to things that can't really bring that. That's why we look to things outside us like cars and status and income and where you live and relationships. And like we look to all, and some of those things are good things. Like they're not even bad things, but we look to things outside of ourselves to provide the internal resources that we need in order to be content. But the problem is so many of those things are fragile and temporary. And we put so much weight on those things to give us contentment. But the problem is when you put too much weight on something that it can't handle, it breaks. And the relationship breaks. Sometimes the actual physical thing just breaks down because that's just what things do is they break down and they lose their value over time. Sometimes the work situation that you put so much energy and attention and pressure on the situation that it just falls apart because it was never meant to hold that much weight. And Paul points us to the thing that he found, the secret that he found to help him be content in any and every situation, to offer him this unconditional wholeness where he can walk around with his holy swagger of, I'm good. This is what he says in verse 13. He says, I can do all things through who? Who strengthens me. Now, some of you have this on a mug or a motivational poster. This is not talking about sports ball. This is not talking about you passing the thing, you getting the certificate. Like what we love to do in greater Christian context is we love to take verses like this that make us feel good and go, hey, we're going to take that and just rip it out of context and throw on a bunch of stuff and sell it and make a bunch of money for people that feel really good about, I can do all things. You're going to charge, yeah, I'm going to look in the mirror. I'm going to say, I'm going to get the thing. The reality is when we take passages like this out of context and use them, it really limits the power that they have. And this is just a study technique of any kind of literature. If you want to know what something means, you need to look at the context in which it is to understand its meaning. So in the context, what Paul's saying, Paul is not saying he's going to win. Paul's not saying he's going to get the thing that he wants. Paul's not saying, I'm just going to be strength. Like, even I've been in the gym where guys will say things like this in the gym, and I'm like, bro, that's not going to help you bench press. Like, Jesus cares about you. He doesn't care about your PR, though. Like, not like that, at least. Right? Like, you have situations where we use this all the time, and in the context, Paul is saying, I can be in any situation. I can have a lot, I can have a little, and it's not the situation or the stuff that gives me strength, it's Christ. Christ gives me the unconditional wholeness that I can encounter anything. I can encounter disappointment. I can encounter betrayal. I can encounter persecution. I can encounter wealth and affluence. Like, I can encounter anything and everything, and it's not going to shake me from who I am because my strength doesn't come from my stuff or my situation. It comes from Christ. Now, I just say, like, we are a church for everybody and anybody, and we got people every single weekend that are watching or in the room that you're exploring faith, you're trying to figure out stuff. I'll just tell you, like, this is all we got. Like, it's all Jesus. And like, our goal as a church, my goal even as a pastor in our church is we want to point people to Jesus because, like, that's all we got. Because we believe that Jesus is enough regardless of the situation. Like, we believe Jesus can change your life. He's changed so many people's lives. He's changed my life. And that's what we hold above everything else. So you come with your questions. You come with your ideas or thoughts and things you're trying to figure out. Like, you can bring all that here. But I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, we go, hey, we're a Jesus church. And it's all about Jesus because Jesus has the strength that we need. And Paul lived this, and he had this kind of holy swagger about him where he could go into situations and he could see things happen and people would do things and mistreat him. And he'd say, hey, you know what? It's okay. And this is why even earlier in the letter to the Philippians, this is what he wrote. He says this crazy statement. He said, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. Literally, if I'm going to be alive, I'm just keep pointing to Jesus, and it's great. And guess what? If I die, it's okay. I'm going to go be with Jesus. Like, Paul's entire strength, his entire swagger was wrapped up in Jesus is enough. Can I tell you, imagine the joy that would give you in life. To where you're not dependent on a situation going your way to have joy. You're not thrown off significantly because something happened you didn't want it to happen and now your whole world's unraveling. Like, it doesn't mean you wouldn't have pain. It doesn't mean you're not going to get knocked down, but you're not going to get knocked out. And Paul's saying, you're going to go through things. And this is what I even say. The reality is even in a room like this, if we went back the last 3 years, every one of us have walked through some significant difficulty. And I hate to say it, but also if we look forward the next 3 years, we're all going to walk through some significant difficulty. And you and I, we have a choice on what we're going to turn to, who we're going to turn to find joy. It doesn't mean that we're happy. It doesn't mean things are all fine and they work out. It's just the reality is saying, I'm going to make a choice that joy is a who, not a what. I am going to turn to Jesus. That's where even Paul goes back and he points us to think about things because that's how you learn contentment. You have to fix your mind on those things. This is even, if you look through a lot of different studies and schools of thought, they almost always point back to, all religions point back to some practice of mindfulness, of meditation. The Christian heritage, we talk about prayer. They're kind of all the same thing. But I'd say the difference with prayer is not just being mindful of my own thoughts. Prayer is turning my thoughts to God and interacting with him in my thoughts, which I think is a greater thing because you need someone or something outside of yourself to help you through those things. And this is where Paul, earlier in the chapter, he actually points and says, this is how you get mindfulness. This is how you get contentment through these practices. And he tells them, finally, brothers and sisters, this is what you should do. You need to think about whatever is true and noble and whatever is right and whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable. If there's anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. Saying this is where you should focus your mind to. And then he goes on, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into, what's this word? You need to do something with it. It's not enough to just hear a message on a Sunday and go, okay, great, I heard that, I felt something, I'm gonna go on my week, I'll come back next week and hopefully I get the same experience. Like the reality is Paul's saying, you need to practice something. You need to embrace this as a way of life. And then he says, this is the result. If you practice this, then you get the peace of God that will be with you. Like Paul's saying, if you want to be content in situations, if you want to have peace in situations, even when the storms of life are coming up against you and things are difficult and things are not going your way and it is a wrong and bad and horrible situation you're in and it's not your fault at all, even in those moments. If you want to have peace, there's something you need to practice. You got to focus your mind on those things. It's so interesting. So many of the points that Paul is telling us to focus on are also things you find in Jesus. Things that are pure and right and lovely. So Paul is telling us, if you want to have contentment, you need to focus your attention to Jesus. Like I said, that's like all we got. And you need to practice this. And what I would encourage you to do, even how do you put this into practice is, you just got to think about it. I know it can sound so simple in some ways, but like the reality is you have soundtracks that play through your mind. Some are helpful, some are not. And if you look through some situations where you've not kept your own standard, you've messed things up, you could probably track it back to a thought, a soundtrack you're playing in your head of this will make me happy. No one's going to find out. If I only get this, then I'll be good. And then you got the thing, and you're like, actually, this isn't it. And I got to go to my next thing. And what I would encourage you is reframe the soundtracks of your mind with things that are true and lovely. And this is just a practice. And here's the thing, though. It just takes a long time. This is not a get content quick thing of like, hey, by Tuesday, you can be content and you're good. This isn't I'm just going to read Philippians 4:8 a few times in a week. Like we all love that. That's why you go and you work out for 2 weeks or a week probably, then you look at the scale or the mirror and you're like, it's not working. It takes time. It's something you do repetitively again and again and again. And this small step can lead to massive change in your life if you will take the small step consistently. So one of the things that I've done for years is I get up and most days, not every day because I'm not perfect, but like most days I get up and I have some time with Jesus and I pray and I read my Bible and I go over this card. And this card has just some declarations that I say to remind myself. And it's not like affirmations like I say in the mirror, like you're strong and powerful and you have great calves and like, all those are true. Like I don't need to say this in the mirror, it's just like, But the reality is there are things in my life, there are things in your life that you need to speak over and practice something again and again to be able to internalize it so that becomes your default. So one of my declarations I say most days is on this card. It goes like this: I have enough and I am enough. I do not have to scheme to have enough or prove that I am enough. God is for me and gives me what I need. Can I tell you? There's a lot of times, a lot of situations where I don't feel this is true. Where I wanted a thing and I didn't get it and I'm like, oh, and I don't think God is for me and gives me what I need. Where there's a lot of times I'm like, well, I need to prove myself. And the reality is reciting this to myself again and again for years, hundreds of times, thousands of times. It's a slow, steady step you take that can change your life. And you don't have to take this. This doesn't have to be for you. This is for me. So don't take a picture of this. Okay? But there's things in your life that Jesus could do a significant work in if you would just practice them. We're going to finish with a song in just a moment. It's called Jireh. And Jireh is an Old Testament name for God that simply means that he will provide. And this is the thing I think, I want to take this time and this moment to really use it as a chance for you to reflect, because I know there are people, like it's not like a hypothetical, it's like literally I know there are people here that like you're going through stuff and you have questioned that God will provide. And you've questioned, in your situation, you've questioned that God is not providing for you. I have been there. I can still be there. Even if you don't believe it, sing the song. Even if you're not sure, sing the song, because music has this beautiful, powerful thing that I believe that God's Spirit does in us, that he can surround our heart with truth through music in a different way than almost anything else. And what I say is, even for this song, you need to get it, you need to put it on your playlist, you need to listen to it regularly, because life is going to come up against you, and you're gonna have, whether it's a really good situation when you got a lot of stuff and life is working out, or you're in a really difficult situation, feel like nothing is going according to plan, you need to go back to the center that God is enough. He will provide. I'll be content in Jesus alone, not in my stuff, not my situation, even if your situation's horrible. And you want the right thing, you want the good thing, but it doesn't always feel like God's there. I just want to tell you, God is there. God will provide. And I would ask you to use this song at the time to reflect on that, and even as a prayer. Because so often, again, our senses, man, they are gifts, but they also can hijack a lot of things that God wants to do in our life. My prayer for you would be that even in the midst of those difficult situations, even in the midst of those times when you are in a dark spot and you're like, I don't think this is going to work out, and I don't know if it's enough, that you would turn back to and trust that God will provide. So for some of you, we'll ask you to stand, but you can stay seated if you want to. For some of you, I think you need to just open your hands like this, because there's something powerful about physically just responding, and just open up your hands saying, God, this is the situation I'm in. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not sure that you're good right now. You can be honest with God about that. And you can hold that up to him and say, God, I can do it through you. Not myself. I can do it through you. Would you pray with me as they come up to lead us in one more song? Jesus, thank you for what you're doing in our gathering. God, I think about even the people, God, who we have walked through some difficult seasons in the last several years. God, we're struggling to see how you've been good and how you provided through those seasons. God, I just want to ask that you would give us eyes to see your provision. God, you would help us to have faith that you are good. And God, for those of us who are walking through a situation right now, God, we just ask that you would give us strength. And God, we could rally around each other. And God, we could look to you, and we could practice just focusing our heart on you. And God, know whatever the future holds, we want to believe that you are good and that you will provide. We love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.